everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Wildcat Playbook right here at Beyond the Big Ten. Follow us at Beyond the Big Ten wherever you enjoy your socials. My name is Joey Christopoulos. We're here to talk today about another Cats victory. That's why I got the Hawaiian shirt on, because we're one game away from going bowling, baby. 24-10 win over Wisconsin in Madison. So let's bring in our host right here to talk all about it. He's former Bears defensive end, former Northwestern legend, West End Golf Club's very own. And you can check him out on Fox 32 or CHGO covering the Bears all season long. It's Corey Wootton. What's up, Corey?
What's up, Joey? A huge win. I was texting you during the game, like, look at these Cats. Up 24-3 at halftime. It was a thing of beauty, especially at Wisconsin. Tough place to play. Jump around. You've been there, right? It's tough. Once that starts in the fourth quarter, it gets rowdy over there. So I think that's just a huge win for Northwestern. And we talked about, we're looking at the schedule early in the season, and then we were talking about it the past couple of weeks of winnable games. We didn't think like Wisconsin was going to be a winnable game, and they came out and shocked the world. And I think having Ben Bryant back, I think that was huge for the team. It really reinvigorated them, and they started fast. And that's the key, Joey. Anytime you could put up 24 in the first half and only hold them to 3 at that point is huge for any team. So starting fast was critical. In the second half, they weren't able to have the same offensive firepower, but defensively they were able to stop them, and that's huge. And think about this, right? And I know this year has been different from Wisconsin, but when has Northwestern ever outrushed Wisconsin in a game? It's probably been 20 years since that happened.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say, would it be Darnell Autry? I mean, we have to go all the way back, 20, 25
so
years.
So wait, maybe my freshman year, Tyrell Sutton, right, when he really came alive that year. We beat Wisconsin in a shootout, and I think he did outrush them in that game. But I think that's one off the top of my head that I think, that's probably one of the last games where Northwestern has outrushed Wisconsin, because that's their bread and butter. And this year it's kind of been the opposite. They've been very up and down with the run game, kind of more relying on their QB situation, which is definitely different for them.
Yeah, Tanner Mordecai came back in the game. He had missed over a month of action and really honestly wasn't able to get anything going against the Cats defense. And Corey, man, look, you teased it a little bit at the beginning of the year. No one expected the Cats to do anything. No one expected the Cats to win any games. If I remember correctly, I picked them to win 4 games. They've just blown past that. They're 1 game away from being bowl eligible. But Corey, man, this is why I love doing shows with you, man. You are, first of all, you are an optimist, but your optimist always comes with knowledge. And you had them winning 6 games, and you said they could possibly maybe even touch 7 if a couple of things broke right, even at the beginning of the year when no one saw any hope. But you predicted 6 wins. I mean, Corey, this still also has to surprise you just a little bit in the manner of how they picked themselves off the mat early on in the season. Now they're 5-5 with 2 games left against Purdue and Illinois.
I think they put themselves in a really good situation when you're evaluating these last 2 weeks, right? Purdue, Illinois, they've been up and down at times. So these are 2 very winnable games, and like we talked about, this could be a 7-win season, which would be huge. Even a 6-win season, you win 1 out of the last 2. That's huge for the program and what they've been able to do after only winning 1 game last year, opening game in Nebraska and Ireland. So it's huge for the program and what they've been able to do and how they've been able to bounce back. And I think it just speaks volumes of the resiliency of this team, them rallying together despite everything going on off the field to be able to come there, especially that Minnesota game. That's what was such a critical game in the season, right? When they're getting smoked in the first half, even in the third quarter, and they come back, they keep fighting, and then take it to overtime, and that great play throws it to the tight end for the touchdown. I think that was kind of the turning point for them when they started to turn things around, get some confidence. Ben Bryant, right, struggled in the first couple weeks. Then we really saw him come alive. He had been out for a couple weeks. Brendan Sullivan led them, played pretty well. And then all of a sudden, Ben Bryant comes back, puts up 24 in the first half. And especially against a Wisconsin team that, regardless of their record, at home, defensively with their scheme, they love to bring pressure and exotic looks. Ben Bryant and that offense handled that great. And I love the mix and match of the run game. We talked about it My guy Hyman, I still want him to get more carries, right? 4 for 41. I mean, he was a factor out there. The juice, the acceleration.
Yeah.
Exactly. And Cam Porter as well, consistent. That's what he does, 18 for 72. So I think once they can get Hyman involved a little bit more, we saw the playmaking ability from A.J. Henning. That's something that's been consistent. When you're able to get the ball in his hands, he makes plays in there. And Cam Johnson as well, he's been consistent in there. So it's awesome to see the Cats come alive, because this was looking like this could potentially go sideways this season after a couple of these first games, Joey. And they've really bounced back. They've made adjustments. They fought. Hats off to the coaching staff. And I know I've been critical about whether, hey, is David Braun going to be the guy of the future? I think you got to give him some consideration when you're thinking about it, what he's been able to do this season and rally the troops and get them reinvigorated to play. And now all of a sudden they're playing for a bowl game at this point, something that a lot of people didn't see. And talk about that first pod of the season, we talked about what the over-under for wins. And I think it was 2 or 3, right, I believe?
2.5. It was 2.5.
2.5. So they doubled that, right, at this point. So
trying to triple.
I think it's an impressive season with everything. So hopefully for recruiting wise, this will speak volumes. And then all of a sudden they're starting to get that NIL situation figured out. So I think it could be a good thing for Northwestern in the future, because the good part about it now is you don't hear people talking about all the off the field, the hazing allegations and all that, right? What they're talking about is, hey, did you see that Northwestern game? Man, they beat Wisconsin. They came, the Minnesota game. Hey, they had a heck of a game. So as time goes on, all that speaking about everything that went on starts to fade a little bit, and that's what you like to see, because now everybody can get back to the football and everything like that. So it's been awesome to see them come together, win some games, and grind it out in certain situations. So that Minnesota game, I always go back to that, but I think that was such a huge part of the season. When you're down like that, you're getting your tail kicked in, and to be able to bounce back and find a way to get a victory, I think that speaks volumes of the team and just the character of the guys.
That's such a great point. I just kind of look back to as well, early on in the season too as well. A little bit of the fear was, we talked about a lot of these players in the team really have nothing to do with the indiscretions of the past. They're just trying to be kids, to make name for themselves, play some football, win some games, become teammates for life, and become a part of the Northwestern Wildcats legacy. The worry was that they were playing poorly, and everyone started kind of piling on and kind of conflating the two of them together. And you're bringing up such a great point that their play alone at least has really, you get a raised eyebrow a little bit about hey, did you see what Northwestern did today? I think a lot of people are quietly in the Big Ten talking a little bit about hey, did you see who Northwestern just beat? And look, they're 5-5. They're in third place in the Big Ten West. They'll lose the tiebreaker to Nebraska. They can't catch Iowa at this point. It's really not that big of a deal. But if you're telling me that you're in the top half of the Big Ten West, and if you win one more game and you go to a bowl, man, Corey, that is a lot to be proud of. I want to follow up with you a little bit deeper. You said, Coach Braun deserves consideration. Is it fair to assume that you're not quite sold yet that he should return next year? And kind of what are your thoughts on that right now? Because he at least has this group right now, this group of players right now playing together and seeing some results.
Yeah, no, I think he does definitely deserve some consideration. But the only thing I'm thinking of, right, Joey, in this day and age, right, Northwestern has kind of been left behind as far as recruiting, right, for NIL reasons, for maybe head coaching reasons, right? I think when Pat Fitzgerald was there, he really boosted the recruiting, right? I think it is what it is. He's a great recruiter. He was a big name. Guys wanted to play for him. Not to say that guys in the locker room don't want to play for David Braun, but if you have the choice of playing for a Ryan Day or a bigger name in the Big Ten, right, I think you're going to choose. So that's why I'm saying for Northwestern going forward, I think they really have to go out and maybe try to get a huge name, a guy that's known as a great recruiter, a guy that's established. And this is not taking anything away from David Braun. I've loved what he's been able to do. But my thing is like this. If you're trying to make a splash, because people always think about the long term, right? A couple years from now, 5 years from now, you have to win right now, and that's the reality of it, right? So, the transfer portal I think is huge. And Northwestern has kind of struggled with the transfer portal. I know they got A.J. Henning. That was a big pickup for them. But think about if they can get some really talented, all Big Ten guys or all SEC guys that are in the transfer portal because of a huge name head coach. And then all of a sudden you combine that with the NIL deals that Northwestern is starting to come alive with and really get that money together for that. I think that could be a great situation for Northwestern and the Big Ten, because you look at it now, Joey, it's the Big Ten and the SEC. Those are the two main conferences. No ifs, ands, or buts about it, right? Those are the two conferences that everybody wants to see. And if Northwestern is going to compete, in the Big Ten now with the amount of teams that they're bringing in, right, with Oregon and UCLA, USC, they're going to have to get a dude as a head coach, a big name that's known for recruiting, to really keep up with the talent. Because you look at the difference, right? You look at some of the top teams, Ohio State, Michigan, right? Their lines, their trenches are a different beast, right? Their skill positions are a different beast. Right, Marvin Harrison and company, guys like that consistently come out of Ohio State. They consistently come out of Michigan. They consistently come out of Penn State like that, right? Northwestern really hasn't had that. And we have a couple guys sprinkled in here or there. But I think the future of Northwestern, if they want to be a powerhouse, you have to get a big-name head coach that can recruit well and bring in a lot of these talent. Look at the impact that Dion has had with his recruiting, right? Just his name in general. And I know Colorado has been up and down this year. They're going to have to build. It's going to take them a couple years. But I think next year they're probably going to get a lot of guys out of the transfer portal in every position, and in particular the offensive, defensive lines. And I think they'll be greatly improved. And why is that? Because of his name. So going forward, I'm thinking, if I'm Northwestern, I admire what David Braun has done. You got to give him consideration, but I think you have to get a huge name.
Look, everything you're saying is completely fair. And when I think about Northwestern, in the past, at least the last 25 years, I think about Northwestern has been a factory that has bred, defensive ends, you yourself included, linebackers, some running backs, a wide receiver here and there, and then honestly quarterback play that is NFL level. I'm not saying they went off and became great starters or anything like that, but Northwestern has seen a lot of different players go off and play in the NFL at that position. They have to get back to maybe some of those areas of the team in the next couple of years. And if they want to, as you mentioned, compete, let me throw this scenario out for you, and let me see if this would be palatable for you. Now, when you got a David Braun situation like this, you are going to feel inclined to give the guy another bite at the apple and give him another round to see if he can recruit. Obviously, you have a lot of fifth-year senior players in this team that aren't going to be here next year. So this thing's going to turn over again at the quarterback position, at multiple different positions. You're going to have to figure it out. So let's just say you gave David Braun another year or two. And there's a guy right now who's coaching in the NFL, who is a Northwestern grad, who's slowly rising up the ranks with his credibility and his respectability in the NFL. And I could see a scenario where maybe in a year or two he's interviewing for head coaching jobs. Let's just say he's a part of that cycle. He doesn't get that job. And after a couple of years, he has to ask himself, what's next for me? What's the next great challenge? And could Mike Kafka be the guy? What is a name like that? What does that say to you about a possible guy? It won't happen next year, but maybe in a couple of years from now. Would that be an interesting choice?
Yeah. I would love to see that. But if I'm a guy that's at the NFL level and everything that played out with Pat Fitzgerald the way it did, why would you ever go back to college level? Do you know what I mean?
And Harbaugh right now. Yeah, and Harbaugh right now.
Exactly. When I'm looking at it, right, just from regardless of what anybody thinks about anything, right, Pat Fitzgerald, he didn't know about the alleged allegations, and he's fired because of it, right? So I understand the whole thing, right? You're supposed to know your locker room and all that. But just think about that from a standpoint when you're in the NFL, right? They're grown men. They're responsible for their own actions. You don't have to worry about anything. Somebody messes up, that's on them. But at the college level, it's the reality of it, right? So if you don't have to recruit at the NFL level, right? You don't have to worry about all this political stuff. You coach, right? So if I'm coaching, I'm coaching at the next level, right? There's less you got to worry about. You got to worry about 110 basically children. And that's what it is. You're not an adult until you get in the real world. I don't care what anybody says, right? Yeah. Yes, you are technically adult under the law, but just think about it. I think they say the male brain is still developing until 25 or 27 years old, something along those lines, right? So think about when you were 18 to 22. Think
I
about
had it all
the
figured
dumb
out.
stuff you did.
I had it all figured out, Corey. I knew it all back then.
Exactly. but yeah, it's just a tough situation, right? Because obviously, like I've said this from the anybody that was affected by any of the hazing allegations and everything, heart goes out to them. But it is tough to be a college head coach. You're responsible for a lot of things, right? Mm-hmm. And it's hard to know what 110 guys are doing, right? Think about it. My parents didn't know what I was doing all the time. You know, it's just the reality of it. So if I'm a coach and I'm at that level and I'm a coordinator over there, I'm staying put. I'm not dealing with everything that's going on, having to recruit, having to be on the road. I'm worried about coaching at the NFL. So I would be surprised if Mike Kafka, unless they threw him so much money that he just couldn't refuse it, which I could see. But I think it's hard. It's hard for coaches nowadays, seeing how things have played out with certain coaches, to be like, oh, I want to go back to college, you know, or something like that. So I think it'd be hard, but I would love to see him do that.
No, look, it's totally fair. You know, that is a guy who I could possibly see them try and target. I think we can both agree that no matter what happens, when Northwestern takes a big swing, it's going to have to be
you know what
a bag load of money and a 10-year deal, right? Like, honestly, that's
thinking?
what it's going to take.
You know what I was thinking? Cliff Kingsbury. I would love that.
Why?
Quarterback
why
guru.
Not?
Right? He would recruit well. He'd bring somebody in the transfer portal that has maybe 2 years of eligibility because of the COVID year. He'd recruit really well. He's coached at the NFL level. He's been successful at every college level. Who wouldn't want to play for a guy like that? Everyone I've talked to that's played under him said he gets the best out of his players. He's got your back. So I think in that situation, right, he's at USC right now. I'm throwing him a bag there, because he's going to recruit quarterback position well. And what have we talked about? The common denominator when Northwestern does well is their quarterback situation, right? Brett Bazinet, Mike Kafka, Dan Persa, Trevor Siemian, Kane Coulter. You know, the proof is in the pudding, and I think Northwestern, when they do well, even back to Zach Kustok and all those guys, when they have a good quarterback, they're able to do well. So I think bringing in a guy like Cliff Kingsbury, man, that would bring talent. It would bring some of these studs, because the transfer portal is going to be a huge deal going forward in the landscape of college football, right? You're going to have guys that are proven guys that have been starters that are like, hey, I just don't want to be here anymore. All of a sudden, if Northwestern can really take some gems, a guy that has, you know, a year or two left that's a stud, all of a sudden this could change the trajectory of the Northwestern program. And I think a guy like Cliff Kingsbury would be a great hire for recruiting, great for the offense, great for the quarterback position. I like that option. What do you think about that?
Look, I love it for so many different reasons, and some of the reasons you've already mentioned. The first one is you're seeing the Pac-12 get chopped up into tiny little pieces, right? So that's maybe not as an attractive job as it was before. The Big Ten is going to be in the forefront just as much as the SEC moving forward. We'll see on talent level. We'll see on that front. But you just mentioned Deion Sanders, and I'm not saying it's a similar situation. It's a little apples to oranges, but you can go anywhere now a little bit. You can go to a Colorado that has a moderate history, maybe not a deep, thick, rich history in college football. You can go to a place like that and put it back on the map. And if you're looking at a place like Northwestern, I don't know. I think that's a really interesting situation from him. I think we're seeing the transition out of a little bit all these guys chasing the jobs. You know what I mean? We've seen, we've seen what was it? The Notre Dame coach, Coach Kelly, go down to LSU. They all just kind of go to the same 4, 5, 6, 7 different spots. I think we're seeing the transition a little bit of when Harbaugh got involved. He went to a place like Stanford, put Stanford on the map for a couple of years. This is something that Cliff Kingsbury can do. He can recreate his own value and his own market in a place like a Northwestern. And let's be honest, if you bring Cliff Kingsbury against the offenses of Iowa and, the run first of Wisconsin, teams like that, I mean, honestly, it gets a little cupcake, right? Now, of course, you got to play the USCs of the world, right? You got to do that eventually, the Penn States, Michigans, Ohio States. But I'd be on board with that. Again, it would take a buttload of money and a 10-year deal, no matter what.
Think about when Northwestern was really on the map as a competitor in college football landscape, right? Gary Barnett when he was there, right? And I know Randy Walker overtook that team in 2000, I believe, but that was Gary Barnett's recruits. So look what Gary Barnett brought to the table with them. He turned the Northwestern program that was struggling, turned them into a Rose Bowl contender a name in all of college football. Pat Fitzgerald was 2-time Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, beat out Ray Lewis. So I think that's what it's going to take. Like if Northwestern is going to be able to compete against teams like Michigan, Ohio State, they're going to have to bring a dude in there and be able to recruit, Joey, because we've always been able to play well against an Iowa, even Penn State at times, a Wisconsin. But the two teams that we've always struggled against was Ohio State and Michigan. Why?
Yep.
Because they recruit better, they have better talent. And some of it, right? Playing for a guy like Lloyd Carr, right? That he recruited really well. Jim Tressel recruited well. Ryan Day. Right now, Jim Harbaugh recruits really well, gets the best recruits. The coaching matters, right? If they put Rich Rodriguez didn't recruit the same way that these guys did. And that's why Michigan was in the dumps for a couple years with him there, right? That's the worst Michigan has been in a while.
Corey, just really quick, you brought up Gary Barnett in 2000. Be honest, was that team, did that have a little bit to do with why you came to play for Northwestern? I know it was, 5-6 years later, but let's be honest, This stuff rolls itself over a little bit, and you start to build that reputation. Did that play a small factor in you deciding to go to Northwestern?
I remember as a kid, watching Northwestern that year when they won the Big Ten, 2000 I think, or 2001. I just remember watching the games, and I always thought it was like their uniforms being the black and purple. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And Wildcats, I'm like, okay, what is this? Playing in the Big Ten, because around me we always had the Michigan games on, and we see when they play Michigan and Ohio State and these teams, and they were competitive, and it was awesome to see. So I was like, listen, when I was getting recruited, that was the only them and Indiana were the two teams that recruited me, and I was like, you know what? Love to be in Chicago, love to have a great education in Northwestern and play for a competitor, right? They were very competitive in their games. And I'm like, listen, let's do this. And it was one of the best decisions I ever made, right? Because I got great coaches, great players, and it was an awesome experience. So, yes, I think from when I got there to when I left and where the program was going was unbelievable. And I think it's, Pat Fitzgerald was a great coach, right? He got the best out of his players, he recruited well. And I think whatever coach they have going forward is going to have to be cut from that same cloth. Guy that can recruit, that guys can rally around, that can believe in. And, I think a big name would really do that. And I think Northwestern, the whole goal, right, is to be a powerhouse. You don't want to just be how you have been these past couple of years, right? Oh, 6 wins, 7 wins. No. You want 10-plus wins. You want to be competing for a Big Ten title. And I think that's the goal. And if it isn't, they need a whole nother regime in here, president, AD. Your goal should be to be number one in the Big Ten. And I think they can do that. I think it's going to take time, but you have to get a dude in there. I think the transfer portal could make that potentially easier with the right person, as the head coach.
Corey, let's roll it forward and let's get to our last topic here. Northwestern goes on. They go to play Purdue next week. Purdue, look, a 3-7 football team. But they just beat the brakes off of Minnesota. And so, Corey, we're going to get to Corey's keys here for a second. And I'm telling you, man, I think I'm just teeing you up the most perfect possible way. This is like Chris Paul to Tyson Chandler alley-oop style. This is an open fairway question here right now. So, Corey, Purdue last week runs the ball 44 times for 353 yards, 8 yards a pop. 4 touchdowns against Minnesota. So you tell me, Corey, what is Corey's key to Northwestern beating Purdue this week?
I'm gonna say to stop the run.
Slam dunk.
Exactly. I'm putting 8 in the box this week. I don't care if they beat us deep. You just cannot let them go off on you. Yeah. I mean, to rush for that many yards. I mean, that might be one of their all-time. I know Mike Allstott had some crazy yards, but I don't think any running back has probably had what they were doing. It was unbelievable to see that, but you got to stop the run, Joey. And I think Northwestern defense has rallied as the season has gone on, right? They played better defensively, right? They had a huge win at Maryland, huge win against Wisconsin, 2 games that we predicted they probably wouldn't win. So I think the defense is rising to the occasion. And I think they realize, listen, if we could take care of business here, we will go bowling, right? And then that last game is just an added bonus to get a better bowl game spot. So if you could handle your business there, because Purdue's a team that's been so up and down, right? In this game, they're like, hey, we're going to rely on the run. But Northwestern, I'm putting 8 in the box this week, Joey. I'm going to make them beat me deep. I'm going to say, go ahead, do your thing, but I'm not letting them run all over us, because that's where Purdue is really going to come home and get a win. So if they can stop the run, I think they can win this game.
Yeah, and you're looking at a guy that we highlighted last week, Aiden Hubbard. He now has a 3-game sack streak. See if he can keep that going too as well. Yeah, anything else, Corey? I mean, personally, I just think from the Cats side of the ball, especially after what we saw last week, I think 4 quarters. I know it's cliche, but I think 4-quarter football is going to be important in this game. When you look at Purdue and their playmakers, Deion Burks is good, Maccabee is good. Hudson Card, I mean, he can throw the football around. They can score some points, man. So I don't think 24 points in the first half and then just kick back and relax, I don't think that's going to cut it. I think you need 30-plus in this game. So I think that's a big key for the Cats to win.
I agree, and I think the biggest thing is to start fast, and I think that's what they did in this last game, right? Wisconsin came out 3-0, but then from then, right, 24 points in the first half, really get that offensive firepower. And, Joey, why not give a guy like Hyman the ball more, right? 4 carries for 41 yards. He's got the juice. Give him some more carries. Mix and match him and Cam Porter. We know what we have from Henning and Johnson and company. But really get those running backs going, because I think that's where you create the matchups. And I talked about it. The Texas route against a linebacker, that's a nightmare for him. Hyman will run circles around him and then all of a sudden get the real route with him. Get those matchups, get some swing screens when he's one-on-one in space with a linebacker, and I think he'll make him pay for it. So really take advantage of those matchups. Start fast. I think that's going to be the key. And, Joey, if you get a win in this game, it just makes this season that much sweeter with everything that went on, to be able to make a bowl game and then have your last game against Illinois, the rivalry game, just be icing on the cake at that point. And then it has you excited going into that game, and to win 7 games potentially in the season, for when the way the season started didn't look like they were winning a whole bunch of games. So they kept fighting, they kept rallying, and hats off to this team. They are very resilient for everything they've been through. And I know they're just happy to play football at this point. And like I said, as time goes on, we hear whispers of that. We don't hear them talking about everything that went on in the offseason. So it's good to see that their play is speaking for them. And because if they were bad, everybody would be talking about, oh, look at this. You know, they'd be the memes going back and forth like they were in the summer, right? We don't see any of that anymore, because as time goes on and you put a good product out there, people start to forget about things.
That's a great point, especially about Hyman. I completely agree with you on that. I mean, now that you have Ben Bryant back, look, no knock on Brendan Sullivan, who I thought played well in his stead. But with Ben Bryant's arm, you could just simply call different kinds of throws. He can just simply make more throws. So this is an opportunity to kind of open up the playbook a little bit. And again, like you said, get Hyman involved. I like to see A.J. Henning still in the mix a little bit. Cam Porter continues to run really hard. And, of course, you got guys like Kurtz and Cam Johnson there picking up the slack when you need it and moving the chains. So, Corey, let's get out of here, man. I need your prediction, my friend. What is it going to be, Cats versus the Boilermakers? Who comes out on top in Week 12?
I'm gonna say the Cats. I'm gonna say 28-21. Tight one, right? I think it comes down to one of the final drives, and I think they get it done. I think Ben Bryant being back, I think it's a huge boost for this offense. What he's able to do, airing the ball out, he feels confident. I think him and Henning are on the same page. Cam Johnson, like I said, exploit those matchups with the running back, especially Hyman. Get him one-on-one in space. I think if they could start fast and defensively stop the run, I think they could be successful. So this is going to come down to a great defensive performance, right? I think defense wins games, and obviously got to put points on the table. But I think defensively, if they can stop the run, knock that out, I think they could be successful.
I'm a little bit more worried. I just think there's going to be a lot of points in this game, Corey. I'm going 37-28. Cats win. I'm going big time. It might feel a little tight at times, but I think the Cats just keep coming. I think they keep scoring. Look, man, I'm buying in now. Look, we're deep enough into the season to say that they have 5 or 6 guys on offense that Ben Bryant can get the ball to, that can do some damage and can move the chains. It's not as one-dimensional as you think it is. There's plenty of weapons that we highlight all the time here on the show. So I think that can be enough to put up a pretty good number. And look, man, I got the Hawaiian shirt on right now, Corey. If they go bowling, what do I get? Like a Jimmy Buffett straw hat? Do I get like a little parrot? Do I get a parrot? Do I do the show next week with a margarita in my hand? Like, I don't know. What do I do?
I
We go bowling.
I guess if we go in the bowl game, if they make it, right, beyond the Big Ten, you send us out there to cover it?
Oh, there you go. Just shouting it out. Just dropping it on there. You got to give the Cats some love. I mean, come on. We've been one of the better stories, honestly, of the second half of this Big Ten season. Corey, we got to get out of here, man. So great to see you. This is the Wildcat Playbook here at Beyond the Big Ten. Follow us at Beyond the Big Ten for all of your basketball and college football content all season long. We got some bowl games coming up. We got some huge matchups. Of course, Ohio and Michigan State just a couple of weeks away. We're going to be there to cover all of it, and then also we're going to roll it over to college hoops too as well. I'm Joey Christopoulos. My co-host, former Bears defensive end Corey Wootton. Follow him at Corey Wootton, 2 O's, 2 T's. Get that right when you punch it in. Great show, my man. Take us home. And hopefully we're coming back, man. This is great. We're talking about Cats victories. I love this.
Exactly. Another great pod, Joey, talking about the huge win at Wisconsin, jumping around after the game. I know they put that on in the locker room. It feels good just to see the resiliency with this team. Huge opportunity this week to get a dub. Playing Purdue, I know they're coming off a great game, but I'm pumping the brakes on it. I think it was a good performance by them, but I don't think it's what we're traditionally used to seeing from Purdue. I'm looking at that Nebraska game where Nebraska put up 31 on them, so I think Northwestern can really, really make their mark in this game. I think their defense has been spotty at times. I think them rushing the football this past game really skewed things. So stop the run, really start fast offensively. I think this is a defense that's let up a lot of points. So this is an opportunity for Ben Bryant and company to really go off. I'm looking for a big performance from him, Henning, maybe Johnson as well. Porter's super consistent with his rushing, but get Hyman involved. That's really what I want to see because he is a nightmare matchup. So if they can do that, I believe they can win that game, like I said, 28-21. And then we'll get with you next week. We'll break it down, the good stuff. And hopefully, hey, we'll be like back in the day. I used to shoot that 300, and we'll go bowling, baby. So looking forward to that, and we'll break it down for you guys. And love to hear you guys' feedback. And if there's anything you guys want us to touch on, guys that are listening to the pod, love the feedback. Give us the feedback on Twitter, Instagram, and love to hear from you guys. And hope you guys enjoying the pods. And we've been looking forward. It's been a lot of fun how the Cats have turned around this season. So looking forward to next week, Joey.